So the new mages are finally here, the G4 mages. Those of you who have followed me on my other channel or who are in my alliance know that I have been saving up for a very long time for events like this. Now I have over 2,200 of these tokens, so we will now be maxing them and seeing what their potential is. Of course, this is going to be more of a testing them out as much as I can, being that I will not be able to test every single thing on them because I don't have the max pet, I won't have the max artifact. I also try and get as much of it as I can, and if I can get this hero as fast as the other one, I should be good pretty quickly. But basically, these new mages, from what I can see so far, Yun-Ming is going to be incredibly OP. He is going to, I think, replace Liliya as the best AOE damage dealer in the game currently. But when it comes to Gromara, I am a lot less convinced of her power in this game, so we will have to test it out. And here we go. So this was obviously very lucky because I didn't have to spend much of anything at all to unlock these guys. So we are going to be maxing them out fully. So you can see exactly right here, 2,230. So it will cost like almost 700 each. But this is why I have this for them. Now, obviously, I have a lot of G4 and a lot of Universals. I've been playing this game for a very long time, especially Rise of Kingdom. I played it for, I think, almost 10 years now, even longer than 10 years, basically since it's been out. And then I always have known that in this game, the longer you play, the more OP everything becomes. And what do I mean by that is that from the beginning, I knew that I would need to save these legendary hero tokens that are universal. So obviously I'm going to spend quite a bit of them right now, but they are basically going to be good all the time because the G4 ones obviously are only for G4 and then G3 and all that stuff, vice versa. So this is why I've been saving them for a long time. So now I'll fast forward through this bit a little bit since it's going to be a lot of clicking. So here we are. We are now maxed on both of the heroes. So awaken, and now the other one is also awaken. I am going to be able to bring them to 60 pretty shortly. I have enough for one of them, but I also don't want to make waste of all the CP that I'm going to get with Darklings and all that kind of stuff, so I'll keep them at 55 just for now. But I am also going to be able to bring this guy to the last 6-star here. And for the talents, I'm going to do something pretty basic here. I might switch it up a little bit in the future, of course, right now, because he is obviously a skill-based hero, and skill-based hero have a very kind of straightforward talent tree that they kind of always get. Here is one of the difference here. The deputy has more rage kill, so this will change if your deputy has a rage kill or not. But in this case, I would activate this one because I want to test it specifically with the new hero. Now again, this will all kind of like get modified at some point in the future. I'm really just testing it right now to see what I can do with this guy. And then obviously for the artifact, Phoenix Eye is most likely going to be your best bet if you do not have the new one, but the new one is obviously going to be what you should be getting for him. So the Dragon's Fate, this one is basically like the Phoenix, being that it's a big AOE damage that is really powerful, and also does more damage for units that are going to be hurt, so it's like an execute. But not only that, when you are going to be doing normal attacks basically all the time, there's a percentage chance that you do extra magic damage, which is skill damage. So, I mean, you're going to be stacking a lot of damage. Now, this P6 is not too sure what exactly it means because obviously it's not showing me what it is. But I think in any case, it's still going to be good, being that anything that's new in this game is usually OP. So that's kind of how it works, though it's not always the case. But in this case, I think this is going to be the mage that finally dethrones Liliya. And here we go. So that was really pretty lucky. I'm gonna keep rolling. Okay. I guess I'm gonna keep rolling. That was the 2 in very quick succession. So I guess I should be recording my openings more often. So now to talk about the hero a little bit more. So obviously the skills have been revealed for a while, so I'm not going to go into too much details, but I do think that this skill is going to create an insane amount of power for this hero, and he is going to be dethroning Liliya in the AOE damage effect. Basically every time he launches a normal attack, which is constantly while you're in battle, you do diffuse damage, so obviously not as much damage to the second and third target, but still a very decent amount of damage. And then it's 300, and it's 3 in total, being that once you max him here, this is 3 legions. So obviously the the max is a must. It is one of those heroes that you kind of must max. But where he comes into play, where he's going to really shine, is going to be the other abilities. Now, this is another extra enemy legion, and then you also are going to have more defense, which is stacked. So that's 30% defense, which is obviously very, very good because it's basically up all the time. Premonition's casting every second or so, so it's not like this is ever going to not be up. And then 20% more damage and 15% more HP. So damage, skill damage is obviously huge. 20% of auto buff is insane, but also 15% HP is the best stat in the game because HP gives your troops basically more strength, and that makes it scale higher for the damage you deal. HP is the best stat in the game, bar none. Always has been in the Rise of Kingdom, is the same almost all the time. So I mean, it's insane. Like this is one of the best passive that exists in this game. And then lastly, the fourth skill means that when you are dealing damage with premonition, which is the first skill, you have a chance of dealing, like 50% chance of dealing an extra instance of magic damage, which is 125 times the highest temporary buff stack, which is all a little bit confusing, but it just basically tells you that you have up to 625. Will you be doing 625 every single time? Maybe not, but you'll be doing 625 pretty often, because if we're talking about buff stack, I mean, already here he's stacking himself buffs, and then depending on when you're pairing him with her, she also has a 5 stack here of magic attack, which obviously pairs very well with him. So in the end, you're going to be having this most likely pretty high, because I'm thinking if there's 4 stacks of, well, no, there's 3 stacks of buff here and she gives 5, that's 8 total. If you're doing 125 times 5, you're at 625. So unless my math is wrong, and I'm obviously going to have tested, if you're pairing them together or with anybody who has a buff that stacks up to 2, instantly you're doing this max every time. So mathematically, if you're thinking about 50% chance every time you do damage with that, that means that it's like almost 100% chance of doing half of that damage. So let's say every time this deals damage to now 4 targets, you're adding an extra 312, let's say. So it's basically adding another instance of damage. So it's just showing that there is so much AOE and so much just pure skill damage being done by this hero. Now, obviously, this is going to be insane as well. One in battle, you gain a buff. So Diviner's Mark. I don't know if that counts as a stack or not for the other thing, but for 10 seconds every 30 seconds. So you're not going to have this up all the time, but you will have it up, 30% of the time, 33% of the time. And then when this is active, you gain 15% magic attack. So another huge stat buff, especially for a awaken skill. Like this is pure extraness. And your premonition is targeting an extra legion. So, I mean, that's why this is 2 or 3, right? So the third one is during this buff. And then Astrologer's Blessing and Escapable Fate have 100% trigger chance. So this is what we talked about. This is not 50% now, it's 100%. So not even are you targeting 3 legion plus 1, you're targeting this double damage of this. So I mean, it's crazy how much damage you're doing for this amount of time. He is going to be a insanely high skill damage hero. This is why you're doing the skill damage tree on him, and he is obviously quite insane. Also, the first thing to remember here is that his first skill is a passive. It is not a rage skill. Now for Gromara, she is definitely weaker. She is not as good in my opinion, but one thing she is good at is doing a lot of raw damage and a lot of boosting skill damage. If I'm correct, it's up to 40%. So here is what I'm thinking. Deals magic damage up to 2000. That's only when you're max, of course. Otherwise, it's at 1800. But really, this is where the awaken is really amazing. It goes from 10% skill damage to 25% skill damage. So the awaken is, again, a must on this one. I mean, she's obviously so much stronger when you awaken her. This is 2000 damage factor rage skill. So this is a rage skill. So, I mean, in this situation, she is going to grant a buff that gives 25% hero skill damage. Now, this is a huge amount. The bonus is removed the next time any hero casts a rage skill. And it is casted after doing a rage skill, right? So what I'm thinking is she casts her rage skill. This buff gets put on the Legion. Now, obviously, he's going to be casting his stuff and doing tons of extra damage because the buff is going to be on them both. Now, she is going to cast her rage skill again the next turn, and she will consume this buff because he doesn't have a rage skill, so he doesn't remove it. And then basically after her rage kill, she should be re-giving herself the buff. So if I'm not mistaken, she would have the buff 100% of the time. Now, sadly, her second skill is the Garrison, which obviously Garrison in this game is great for many players who like to be swarmed and bastions and stuff. But Bastion of Mages is, I don't think, even with this hero, going to be really good. It's going to be good in the cities, especially with Tohar, who's also a mage with also Garrison, and they're also very decent. Especially with the talents that give it so that you can ignore troop types and all kind of stuff. But in any case, it's kind of like an anti-swarm, so it's not too terrible, being that as a Garrison mage, people would tend to swarm you, and this would do a lot of damage to a nearby legion, but it's every 10 seconds. So I mean, I don't think it's terrible, but I really am not convinced that it's going to be really good yet, because it's also not that high damage factor. But as a Garrison, you do a lot of damage. So I mean, to be seen. I don't think it's terrible, but I do not think it'll match up to the infantry that we just got that are obviously OP as hell. This is pretty damn good on some aspect, being that you gain 20% defense, which is really good, better than attack, but not as good as HP. But then you get 20% attack resistance. Now, this is not something that anybody seems to fully understand the mathematics behind it. It could be that you reduce the attack of people attacking you by 20%, which in this case would be a really very powerful buff for defending, so garrisoning. But in any other case, I don't really know what it does, so I'm not sure if the open field, if it does anything, because I mean, ignoring the attack of someone you're attacking, I mean, I guess they're attacking you back, so you're reducing the counter attack damage, but not that much. It could be good, like it's not something terrible, it makes her more tanky, but I still don't exactly know what it means. Now, lastly, this is her best passive skill, obviously 15% skill damage. So now we're at 40% when you have those two at the same time. And then dealing damage, basically magic skill damage, which in the case of him, or for her with him, it means every second or so. You are going to be increasing up to 5 stacks. So that's 25% magic attack bonus. So you're getting 20% defense. You're getting 25% attack. You're getting 40% magic damage. You're getting all of this extra HP bonus. So these two are very powerful mage march in any situation. The only downside really is the fact that she has a fully wasted skill here in the open field. So now to test them on the open field, of course, I'm not going to do anything that's too crazy. I'm using my max Liliya Velyn March, which has, you know, I got another 3-star Sapphire with obviously the best artifact for her. Then I'm using the same thing you saw me put earlier on him. And then I'm fighting 45 rider, so there's no difference there. Obviously, it's a very little amount of testing. This one's also not max and all that stuff, but just to see a little bit of the difference between them in terms of number. And then we'll look at the battle report to really look at what it looks like. So you can see, obviously, he's casting his blue skill consistently, regularly, because it's every second or something. This is his artifact, of course. Her artifact is also very strong, but I mean, these are very high amount of damage. And then you can see the rage skill that she casts is also a pretty high damage dealing ability. Liliya is 16,000. Hers is like up to 26. I think it's 18,000 otherwise. But in terms of strength in a 1v1, they are pretty similar. Obviously, being that Liliya has a very strong level 5 artifact and all that. But it's interesting still to see that they are very similar power levels, even with all the malices that this one has in terms of levels and all that kind of stuff. So next thing we want to look at is the battle log. We want to see basically, if I click very quickly, you'll see basically how quickly these marches add buffs. So all this def, magic attack, and then more and more and more and more. So I think basically it caps up here, and then this 25.5%, so basically 25%. That is when Gromara casts her blood ritual and then gains this 25% right here. So it's all pretty crazy. You can also see basically every 2 seconds he is casting his own skill, which is really not a talent, but it's basically his damage where he's doing, where is it exactly? I guess premonition is here. So he's doing his damage, which is doing a lot of damage, and then his inescapable fate has a 50% chance. So, I mean, it doesn't explain to you exactly the damage that it does, but obviously, being that it does half the damage of this one, I'm guessing it's going to be a 300 damage factor-ish. So at this point, he's obviously pretty early in the turn. He only has a few buffs. So we'll see how much damage this one does a little bit later when he has way more. And here we go, we find one here. So now obviously he is fully buffed and he is doing 8,000 damage with inescapable fate. So this is obviously probably at the highest at 625. It might be a bit less, but I mean, there's so many buffs on here if you think about it. So I mean, it's pretty close to the max. So you can see that this is going to be something that's casted at max pretty often. meaning that these are temporary buff stacks, which they have a lot of. So this is one thing that is very, very powerful with this March, and why being comboed together is very good. And now the other thing we wanted to check is going to be regarding Gromara, if her 25% damage buff is going to stay on for a long time. So obviously I'm going to go down up here, and then you can basically see it here where Gromara is casting her skill here. That's her buff basically, and then blood ritual right here. So 24,000 damage, very good. It's also triggering Spirit of Rage and Caged Animal, which are the talents on Yun. So obviously in what I was saying earlier, this is obviously something that works. Even if he is the primary and doesn't have a rage skill, it doesn't seem to matter too much in this situation. Now, I don't really see the 25% damage being applied in here per se. It does say that basically when she casts her blood ritual, it is going to grant more skill damage. It's not really a buff per se. Now, if we keep going further and further, you can basically see that the 25% is always there. There is no moment where it's being removed. So in this instance, she should be basically consuming her buff and then getting it again. So obviously, this isn't telling me anything regarding if it is or not doing that, but the next turn afterwards, it's still here. So now it's at 26. The reason being that she's getting the cage animal. So every time you cast and you are in battle, it will go up by 0.5, so until battle ends. So if you're in PvP, you're fighting for much longer, this is going to be up to 8%, so you're going to get even more. So basically every single turn we're having the 25, 26, and then if we go all the way to the end, we're at 27, and it's never not there. So I think it's fair to say that this talent is going to be up at all time, meaning that she is going to get 25%. And this is obviously not going to be true if you put her with anybody that has another rage skill, because the rage skill of the other hero would probably remove it. She'd get it again on her turn, which would still be very good. But the fact that when you're pairing it with Yun, he doesn't have a rage skill, this is constantly casting. This is really where it is going to be very, very strong. Ohar also has the exact same effect. And also is a garrison hero, so she is going to be someone that also mixes very, very well with Ohar. So that's something to keep in mind, being that the synergy works amazingly for this, and 25% is nothing to laugh at. It's a huge buff, it's a full skill. Now we're obviously still in the middle of a KVK. I'm going to max up a little bit more of this March, trying to get them to level 60, as well as keep testing them in the open field against war. I'm going to try and do some tests against some friends, but I also don't want to be filling my hospital to test things out when there's active PvP going on, obviously, because we're fighting right here. As you can see, we're obviously still winning. We have burnt a bastion, we've burning quite a few things here from way B, but we also are not having an easy fight because it is a very strong and challenging opponent, and we have more bastions to burn and more fight to do. So I am going to be testing him and her out quite a lot for the next few days, and then I will be showing another video in the coming days with a lot more tests and details of different marches, different combos, how to really make it work, what are the best options for these two heroes. So obviously let me know in the comments below if anything that you would like me to test, any march per se. In my opinion, as I said, there is quite a lot of combos you can do with these guys, but obviously together is one really good pair. If you put these two together, it's also an amazing pair. As we said, her and Tohar will work amazingly together. This is an amazing pair as well. And then if you just want to replace, Liliya, which is, one of the worst mage heroes, even though she's still decent, this is going to be the way to do it. But also, if you could create a one, he would still work with quite a few other heroes, like, for example, Mu or even Bertrand. With him would not be a bad pair at all. There's a lot of skill damage. Just things to keep in mind. Please let me know what you think in the comment below, and make sure to subscribe so that you can see when my next video is posted about these guys.